And we're actually going to start with TPP. The first thing we're going to do is show you a method to import a roster of your membership with their current handicaps into TPP, kind of a stopgap method of using TPP for another few weeks, either until the accounts have been activated and or until you feel you're ready to use the USGA TM product. So I just want to refresh your memory here with this screenshot that when we were able to pull in your current roster with current handicaps, the entire roster would have been put on the left side here under available. And then you would highlight a name, hit the arrow key, and move them from available to selected. This method that we're talking about in terms of downloading, this is going to put the people in the selected side right away. So it's bypassing the middleman, it's bypassing, putting them in the left side, moving them over to the right. So you have a couple of options. One, before you import the material, you pare it down. Not everyone in your club is probably playing in that particular tournament, so you remove those who are not. When you're ready to import, you just bring in the ones who are playing, and again, they're going to be in the selected side, so we actually eliminated a step. Or you bring them all in as selected and then move from right to left those that are not in this particular tournament. So I just wanted to refresh your memory of that. Now I've got a tournament set up here. We don't have anybody in it. So if I go to players, tournament player management, nobody's in there at all. I'm going to go to the GHIN handicap program online, GHP online, that I've referred to yesterday. We're going to go to reports. I'm going to ask for a club roster. This is the Association Employee Club made up of employees here at Poppy Hills and NCGA. I have all these different fields that I can draw from, but really I don't need that. I'm just asking for name, handicap, index, and GHIN number. A couple other points. I only want one column because I'm going to have to clean up this report a little bit before I import it. And I'm not going to print this out, so I'm just saying give me legal papers so there's less headers, things like that. Again, said one column, and just to make my work a little bit easier, I'm going to say I've got a custom footer and I'm leaving it empty. So I've got the parameters set. I'm going to go ahead and run report. At this point, I could print it out. That's what a lot of clubs do, and post it still on a bulletin board somewhere, handicap index. You can see a lot of these people, they don't have a handicap, but this is our active roster based in GHIN right now with current January 15th handicaps. Tomorrow, it would be the February 1st handicaps that would show up. And here's what I want to do. I want to export a report into an Excel format. I don't want to print it out. And I should tell you, we've created the instructions to do this with a number of screenshots. It looks very, very intimidating when you look at all these different steps, but actually it's not. From start to finish, other than the part that you pared down from your entire roster, who's playing in this particular tournament, it can be done in maybe 2 minutes after you get the hang of it. But I'm going to export this report into an Excel format. I'm going to open it up. And that's what it looks like. Now, again, I need to clean it up a little bit. I want to get rid of some of these headers. So I'm just going to delete those rows. I'm going to go down, and I had another little place where there's a page break. Going to delete those. I'm left with 87 members that we have right this minute. Now, we need to break these names down from last name, first name into 2 separate distinct fields. And there's a way within Excel that we can do that, but I'm going to need some room. So I'm going to want to insert a column. And this is going to be the column. As I break up the name, the last name is going to be left here. The first name is going to go over here. And this Excel format, this feature that allows you to break up names, it's under data. I'm going to click on data, and it's text to columns. So I'm going to activate that. Oh, I forgot to highlight that this is what I want to break up. I need to make sure delimited is selected. I'm going to say next. I want to make sure that I break it down tab and comma, get rid of that comma. It's kind of previewing what the end product is going to look like, and that looks good to me. So I'm going to click on next, and then I'm going to finish. And now my names have been broken up, and I'm ready for the next step. Now, I could at this point say, hey, I got 87 people in the club, and 20 of them are playing in the tournament. Maybe I go ahead and just start deleting some of these people. Maybe what I do, especially if you have a very large roster, you have hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe you say, let me go ahead and insert some rows up here, and I'm just going to cut and paste the people that are playing, and then in one swoop, delete everybody else. I mean, you have some different ways that you can go at this point, but the main point is we've got the data that we need. We've got the current handicaps. I've broken the name into 2. Now at this point, I need to do a save as, and this is going to be the difference between a circa 2005 program and a more modern one. I don't have to do this in USGA TM, but I'm going to say I want to save as. I'm going to put it on my desktop, and I need to save it as a text field. I'm going to say save. Yes. Then I need to close this. If this remains open, I'm not going to be able to do anything with it. You can see I'm in that text mode right now. Then I'm going to go into TPP again, the tournament that has no players at all. I'm going to say that I want to import some tournament players. I have a couple of choices here, and we want the one that's referencing HI for handicap index. That's what we're importing, not the course handicap. And then I have to indicate where this file is. Well, it's on my desktop. There it is. And then I want to activate this wizard. I want to make sure that it's very, very clear to the TPP program which field is which. So I edit this. Now I can tell you at this point I'm going to say next. This is set up right now. For me, I got to change a couple things. The last name and first name is looking good, but not the GHIN number. So I want to highlight here, that's actually the handicap index. And the handicap index is actually the GHIN number. The first time you go through this, it's not going to have it correct. Thereafter, it should if you import it the same way. But now I would be able to say, I want to finish. I've got everything identified properly. Finish, hit OK. Boom, it brought the 87 players in. Now again, it's inserted them saying that they are in the field. So you have a couple of choices. While you're in Excel, that probably would have been the easiest place. You just delete the people who are not playing in this particular tournament. Or if it's just a tiny sliver of people in terms of your overall membership, you create some open rows up on top and you cut and paste those people to those open rows. And then when you're done, you delete everybody afterwards. And then you import them here. So you have a couple of different ways that you can go, but I was able to bring in current handicaps here, and it worked fine. Just one other thing, again, I could have brought everybody in. Oops, I could have brought everybody in and then deleted. So here are the 87 people. I could have just started taking some of these people and move them out that way and then get down to my number. The other thing I'd want to show you that you can do is the low-tech method. When I'm in player management, I have all these people in the field. I can just go to a name and the handicap's going to be over here. Now, again, some of these people didn't have handicaps, so that's not a good example. But there's the one that's 21.1. As I scroll down to the next name, there's a handicap. The low-tech way is you just go, hey, my field's really small. I got 20 people. Chances are not all of them, their handicap index changed. So all I'd have to do is go in for one of these players and say, well, on February 5th, he's no longer a 2.5, he's a 2.7. He had a couple of bad rounds, and I use that. That's the low-tech way. You're going to have to figure out which way works best for you. But that is a methodology for bringing them in, again, and other than paring it down from my full roster of 87 down to, let's say, the 20 people who are playing in this event, the rest of the process is probably less than 2 minutes. And you do come out a little bit ahead here in that it is depositing them in the tournament. You don't have to move them from the left bin to the right bin. So you are saving some time from that aspect, obviously losing some time in some other manners, but that's how you do it. And we will have those directions available to you. Now I can kind of do the same with USGA TM. I could have gone ahead and run a report. Again, saved it, exported it into Excel, opened it, and it's the same thing when you do a direct import from a spreadsheet into USGA TM. You don't want to bring over the entire roster and then select among that entire roster who's playing in this tournament. You want to bring in who's playing in this tournament. So again, I could pare everything down, delete who I need to delete, and then ultimately just import them. And I don't have to convert it to a text file or anything like this. Again, that's a difference between an older program and a new one. I could import it. I would have to split up the name still. USGA TM is going to want first name and last name, but after that, it would be a go. I could just go into USGA TM and say I'm ready to import from a spreadsheet. Here's that particular spreadsheet. It's intuitive. It's looking for certain headers, some certain titles, and if it sees a match, it's just going to accept that as is. If there's some headers that it's a little bit confused for and it wants some clarity from you, it's going to say, you know, I didn't really match this one up yet. Just let's confirm what this one really means. So it would not know what HI is in its terminology. It uses the word index. So HI would show up, and we'll show you that in a little bit. And it'd say, I don't know who to match this with. And you would click on it and then click on index, and it would say, okay, got it, I understand now, and proceed from there. So again, for a lot of you from golf courses, when you have outside events, if the club is presenting you with a spreadsheet, you don't have to hand enter all these names. They may or may not be wanting you to post score, so maybe you don't need the GHIN numbers or to do a current lookup. You know, a lot of these might be charitable events, scrambles where they don't take the winners and losers too seriously. So you would be using the spreadsheet in order to import the field, and we're going to show you, we're going to be doing a tournament where somebody, we do have a spreadsheet, and not only do we have the name, first name, last name, handicap index, they've also gone ahead and told us in advance, here's who we want playing with who. You know, maybe they want customers and salesmen together, maybe they want you know, upper management together, however they want it. They've already determined in advance, and so since we know that, we're going to use some features within USGA TM to go ahead and form our teams and ultimately form our pairings according to the wishes of this outside event. So that's it as far as moving from GHP online into either TPP or USGA TM. So let's go to USGA TM. When I log in, I'm transported to the customer center. It automatically opens under events, leagues, and trips. We took a look at this yesterday. The intent of yesterday was to give you an overview where some of these screens don't look quite as alien. Maybe you don't understand the operations or how you progress from one step to the other, but you've seen this screen before. Again, we spend very little time here other than your initial setup. This is just where we go to say, I want to create an event, I want to clone an event, things of that nature. Now, the first time you log in, though, you're going to want to set some of your global settings, is what I'm calling them. Some default settings for, generally speaking, this is how we run our competitions. And we'll look at that. Also, this is where you'd set up managers. So the first person in is going to be set up as a manager. You have the opportunity to add a new manager, so you can send an invitation out to someone, their name, their email address, invite them to become a manager, and they have complete access. We can do this on the lower level too, just for an event where they don't have access to everything, just one particular event. So that can be done as well. Other customer center, some of these defaults. Again, anything we can do to streamline the process, make you have to answer fewer questions, is always going to be a good thing. We have a bunch of different headers here. The general settings are pretty straightforward. And you can see, do we generally speaking use divisions, flights, and groups? Well, in this case, maybe I said no. We generally speaking, we don't use divisions, but we do use flights and teams. So by leaving divisions out, I'm not going to be prompted about divisions in any tournaments that I set up. If I set up a tournament that does have divisions, though, I can go change the event setup and say, for this event, I want to defy the default, and I want to go ahead and utilize divisions. Handicap settings that we're only using 18, that you're going to post ESC scores to GHIN. When you go and do a download, when you go and retrieve the current handicaps of everyone that's in the field, what do you want? We discussed this yesterday. Current, trend, low handicap index, things of that nature. Section 3-5 obviously is very important, that if you use multiple T's, it'll make the adjustment between the difference in ratings. And this is the feature that I really love. Let's just confuse the least number of players as possible. So majority of the field, make them get the handicap that they think they're entitled to, that the slope table tells them, and let's just impact the fewest number of people possible with 3-5. So if you had 48 players and 40 are playing white and 8 are playing gold, let's say let's go ahead and spin off white. All the white T players are going to get the handicap they expect. It's just those 8 that I have to do some explaining to. Since the gold T's carried a lower rating, they forfeit a couple of strokes under 3-5. Another would be rounds and scheduling. Generally speaking, I play foursomes in this particular event. I can overrule that if I had 3 two-man scramble teams in a particular group, but in general, I'm playing foursomes. When I do ABCD, like for a scramble, do I want to try to really mix it up and have a lot more social interaction by having some memory and trying to prevent people that have been paired in the past together. Let's split it up and have new people playing with new people, things of that nature. Other global defaults would be, how do you want to do ties? Maybe would set it up USGA method. This is actually RNC's default, so I'm not going to mess with those here, but I can within my own event. I can, again, defy the defaults and say, no, for this particular event, I want to do it slightly different. What other things can we look at here? Master roster, which we're going to talk about a lot more. Now, it's critical that you understand that when you do import from a spreadsheet, you don't want to do it at this point. For the most part, your master roster is your roster that's maintained at GHIN. All the people that are registered for your club at GHIN with their handicaps. If I were to import a spreadsheet from here, I would be overwriting the master report of all of my club members, all the different rosters from your club. Like at a private club, generally speaking, the men's roster, the women's 18-hole roster, the women's 9-hole roster. So whenever you import from a spreadsheet, you want to make sure you're doing that within the event itself and not out here in the customer center. This is where you can go ahead and send emails out either to the entire club if you want, or if you're within the event, just to those people within the event. Again, the pairings are completed a few days in advance. Maybe I send them the pairings, or better yet, I send them an email saying, here's a link to the portal for the website that's been established for this tournament. The pairings are there. You can go in and review them, see what time you're playing, who you're playing with, etc. And then after the event, again, send them that link to the portal where they can view the results, look at the photos, things of that nature. So we're pretty much done. We want to go back to events, leagues, and trips, which is where we're going to default to. So 99% of the time, or after the first time that you've established all of your defaults, again, when you log into your account, you're going to come right here and saying, what do you want to do? Now, I talked about these categories below. Just set it up in a manner that makes it easy for you to manage your events. At a private club, that might be men, women, mixed events, senior events, junior events, outside events. Just, again, any way to organize it, or if you need to call upon a tournament after the fact, it's easier for you to find it. And I say so because of the cloning feature, because ultimately that's going to save you a lot of time. You go, this is the exact same format, the exact same way we want to set up this tournament now is the way we did it 6 months ago, or the way we did it 12 months ago. Instead of answering all those questions again and going through all that, let me just clone the format, and then I'll change some of the players because it's not exactly the same field. So if that was the case, you need to know quickly, handily where you place that tournament. And so just set this up any way that you want. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit today. We are going to create one from scratch, but I have another one that I want to show you a little bit on a couple of the features on just different ways that we can add players. So I've got an event, there's nobody in it. I want to go ahead and import players from the master roster. We saw this screen yesterday. Now, if you're a small club, select from master roster is going to be the way to go. When I activate that, it's going to bring up my current roster, and all I have to do is put a check mark in everyone that's playing. Now, I mentioned that it takes a little longer sometimes, so we have to wait for pages to load. This would be a good example. I'm in an actual a list of all the people that have already signed up for events for the NCGA, so it's, I believe, a couple of thousand strong. But, you know, I've got a couple of pages that I have access to. I don't know, I haven't counted this, but this looks like 20-something people to me. I can come down, I'm looking good, and oh, got to do a little bit of loading and grab me a couple more pages, and then, oh, got to do a little more loading. So if you have a small club, chances are you only have a couple of pages. This is a great way to go, and especially if it's a team competition where you get to sign up with a partner of your choice. Again, in circumstances like that, you would love to add the players in order of teammates, moving forward and back in terms of the alphabet, and put them together, because when all is said and done, when it comes to forming your teams, you can say form the teams by the order that I entered them. So it'd be easy if I wanted to go here and put a check mark in, and then their partner was down here further and put a check mark in and come back. But you can see, again, if you have a small club, this is probably the way you want to go. You're just putting check marks into who is participating. When all your check marks are in, you say import, and you're done. And we're going to see that those 4 golfers will have been added here. Not so good if you have a huge club, hundreds and hundreds of members. I think of the Olympic Club with 3,000 something members. I don't think I want to be scrolling from partners, Mr. Aardvark, who's playing with Mr. Zebra, and going back and forth and waiting for all those pages to load. So I'm going to use the quick search in the master roster, and I'm just going to start typing letters. It requires a minimum of 3, so COW, and now now it's bringing up names that meet that. And if I go a little bit further, it's going to narrow the search for me. So the more letters you can provide, the better. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to play. I want to add a player, and my partner is somebody way down in the other area of the alphabet, Jerry Stewart. Add him. It's keeping track of the order that I've entered them. So again, when I form teams and tell it it's 2 on a team, 1 and 2 go together, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. So if you have a very big roster, you might want to use this quick search method. I do have the ability to add a player to be determined. So if my next entrant, I went ahead and put his name in. He told us he's playing for sure, but he doesn't know who his partner is yet. I want to use TBD, so that 7 and 8 are going to go together. And then when I find out who to be determined actually is, I can substitute the name of the player for the to be determined. But the main point was I preserved the order, which turned out to be a lifesaver, a time saver in terms of forming the teams. So I wanted to show you that here, the 2 methods. This is not the tournament that I'm actually going to use to go start from finish. We are going to import a spreadsheet, but just wanted to give you kind of a live demonstration of that. So I'm going to go back to the Customer Center. I'm going to go into the little category that I've set up called Webinars. And, well, no, actually, I'm going to go and I'm just going to say I'm going to create a brand new tournament. Now, they highly recommend that you start off every tournament with the year. So it's 2018 demo of contestant import. And I want to place that in my webinar category so that I can find it later and not confuse the NCGA Championship event folder, which is clearly all of our own events, going, what the heck is this? This is not one of ours. So the tournament has been set up, and this is where I'm going to recommend that you activate the wizard which is going to hold your hand through about the first 5 steps and walk you through. So if I activate that, it's going to say, okay, first step is add players. How do you want to do it? Well, I'm actually going to do it without the wizard here, but early on you want to do it this way. The next step would be telling it the date of the particular event or round. And then the event profile, it's going to have you go through and just go through all those global defaults that have been set up to see if you want to make any modifications. I have an opportunity to indicate a course, and then I can modify the default portal, the look and feel of that. So, and you'd especially do that for an outside event, and we'll show that in more detail. But I'm not going to use the wizard in this case. I have my trusty list of the order, the progression for navigating through the program on my bulletin board. And the first thing said create event, which I've done, and then it says confirm default event settings. So I'm going to go to event, event profile, and maybe I know going in advance that yes, this event matches all the default settings that I made, so I can just whiz through here very quickly, or maybe I have some modifications. In this case, I am going to say that we're going to utilize divisions here. Generally speaking, we don't, but in this particular tournament, I want to defy the default and go with this. Basically, what I'm going to set up is, I believe I have 60 players. We're going to make 4-person teams. Some of them are going to be men, some are going to be women. We're going to play best 2 net out of 4, which is the format for our zone championship and associate club championship. And I'm going to have some optional skins on both a gross basis and a net basis. So the vocabulary again of this program that we have to commit to memory, we're creating an event. That's the first start. The next step is that event is going to contain a round or rounds. And then within that round or rounds is a tournament or multiple tournaments. So this is an example of 1 event, 1 round, 3 tournaments, best 2 net out of 4, optional gross skins, optional net skins. So I need those divisions here in order to set up these optional skins. If everybody in the field was automatically placed in skins, I wouldn't need divisions, and I would just say I'm just going to utilize perhaps flights or whatever, or would see. I'd still have to create different tournaments for gross skins and net skins, but in this case, it's an optional buy-in. Not everyone's in. And remember, whenever you set up an event and you add players, there's a default of at least 1 division, and that division is those players you just entered. So it's assumed that you have at least 1 division, and then you may have more. So I'm going to save this. I could have gone through some of the other categories under event profile and say, well, maybe some of the other things I set up are going to be different. I'm not going to play foursomes. I'm going to play in some other manner. Whatever. Again, this is your opportunity to say, confirm that all the default settings are correct or modify a couple. The next thing on my bulletin board says confirm default portal settings. Well, the portal, the website, is under apps, so let's go take a look at it. Now imagine that you're at a golf course. We have a lot of golf course staff that's here, and you have an outside event. Imagine how they're going to feel versus previous years when you tell them we've created a special website just for your event, and we're going to send you links to that so that your people can come in and they can view their starting time. They can see everybody else that's playing. And then after the fact, they can see the results in tremendous detail. They can see photos. They can see an article about the finish. They can see the prizes, etc. It's going to make a fabulous impression. So this is the default portal that the R&C department here has set up for our championships in general, but I want to tweak it. So here is where I'm going to look and see, am I coming in as an administrator or am I coming in as a member? And the fact that it's saying I can view this as the member portal means it recognizes I'm an administrator and that I have an opportunity to edit everything. So let me go to the general portal settings and just say, well, I want to mix it up a little bit. I want to make it a little bit clearer so they can see the beautiful 10th hole at Poppy Hills a little bit clearer. Anything else I want to do here? No, as far as that's concerned, that looks fine. But this would, if this were an outside event, I could come in and say, I want completely different logos. I want logos of the corporation. I want branding of the corporation that is coming and playing this event, or the charity that's here today. We want to publicize that. We want some special messaging for those people. But this is enough for me for a demonstration. I'm going to save settings. And then perhaps I want to make some other changes. For example, I want to go to the player information and edit it. This is the player information right here. I'm going to say, no, that doesn't do. So again, you could customize this for an outside event. I prepared a little language that I want to insert there, so I'm going to copy. I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to apply the text changes. And I'm going to save this. And now this is the messaging that they're going to get. I also want to, let's see, where do I have the other thing? I want to put in the flash message, and to demonstrate what that is, I'm going to save that. And now if I want to view what it looks like, that's the flash message. It's just something that is going to constantly scroll across the top. It could be a reminder of the date and time or whatever. But again, you can customize this and imagine an outside event that you've never been able to offer this before. You're now showing their branding, their information. Now, in the long run, when I come in as not an administrator, but view it from the member standpoint, I'm obviously not going to be able to edit things, but ultimately I'm going to have my pairings here. You can select the pairings report that you want to display here that they can view. When the tournament is over, I have various tournament results that I can drop in there. Under social, I have an opportunity again to place event photos and things of that nature in there, and some player statistics or analytics from the round of golf. You know, again, scoring averages on different holes, a breakdown of everybody's round, that they had this many net birdies and this many pars and this many bogeys and this many others, things of that nature. Now, whenever I want to get back to the event manager, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to return to the manager site. The next thing on my list in terms of the order or the progression is to add players. And in this case, we're going to upload a roster from a spreadsheet. So, you know, I'm still trying to figure out, if I were a very large club with hundreds of people and I have a tournament with 70 players, and you'll have to gain some experience and see which way works. How am I going to get those 70 players in quicker? What's the best utilization of my time? I can certainly go to the add for member roster and scroll through each page and put in check marks. If it's an individual event and you don't care about the order that they're being entered, that would be a reasonable way to do it. Wouldn't take forever. You're just pausing as pages are being loaded. If it is an event, though, where the order that you're entering them matters, that might be a little unwieldy. So maybe you use the quick look feature where you type in the first 3-4 letters of a name, narrow your search, select the person. You may find in the long run it's just easier to import from some sort of spreadsheet, either the spreadsheet that you can get from GHP Online Club, and then remove all the people that are not playing, or again, make some rows up on top and cut and paste the people that are in, and then remove everybody else, because in one swoop, those people are in your tournaments. And maybe you place some coding within those players as well, within the records, within the spreadsheet that you want to bring in to make your life a little bit easier. So I'm going to choose the file, the spreadsheet that I'm going to report from, that I'm going to import from. I put it on my desktop. Here it is. It's processing. And I'll show you what that looked like. Let me get out of here for a second. Here was that spreadsheet. So here are the players' names. Again, I broke it up into last name, first name from GHP Online Club. I included GHIN number, gender, handicap index, and group number. Now, again, I'm thinking of an outside event, and they may not know all the terminology. but they're just saying we want these people playing together in the shotgun for specific reasons, and maybe they thought it'd be easier for operations if they just did it alphabetically instead of putting all the ones together. They just said, okay, for this person here, and they don't know what to call it. Now, you're going to come to recognize the headers that USGA TM reads without question and matches up, and you would learn that HI is not something it recognizes, so maybe change that to index, and for group maybe call that team. But we want to show you again the intuitiveness of this process and the difference between a modern program and one that is much older. So I'm going to go back in. It recognized last name. In my spreadsheet it was called last name, and the program calls it last name, so that was a match. Same with first name. GHIN and GHIN ID was a close enough match where it said, okay, I feel real good that I got this right, and obviously it knows gender. It had a problem though with HI. I wasn't sure what it was, so I highlight that. It's now showing up in red. I scroll down and there's index. Those are the two that match, and now it knows, and now it's going to put that HI in the right spot for the players, recognizing that that is their index. And it didn't know what group was. That was not an attribute that was among the list of fields here. You're not quite sure what that is. Well, that aligns with team ID. That's really what that outside group meant when they said we want these people playing together. We want them to form. So I say match. Now I'm going to import that spreadsheet. Fabulous, they're all in. And in the back of my mind, now I haven't formed teams or anything yet, but in the back of my mind, I know that it imported all those group numbers, the intention of that group as to who plays with who when I form teams. So that's going to make my life easier as I move along. So now that I've added the players, my bulletin board says the next step is to add rounds, which is very straightforward under calendars. I'm just going to display the calendar and say the event is this Saturday. Save. I'm done with that step. Now, if I was using the wizard, it would have checked me off when I entered the players. The next would have been actually the round date, but it would have given me credit for fulfilling that step of the 5 steps that the wizard guides you through. As I reviewed the event settings and the portal settings, it would have given me credit for all that. But it's looking to me like the next step is I need to create teams, flights, and divisions. That's going to be under golfers. Going to come down here. And here are all my players. How do I want to set them up? Well, I want to create teams out of them because one of the competitions is best 2 net out of 4. And so I'm going to go ahead and say I want to manage those team flights and take care of that first default division right away. I'm going to create the teams using a custom field. I didn't use the order that they were entered. Again, this outside group supplied me with what they called group number, who they wanted playing with who. That's a custom field. I'm going to say I want to do it that way. And what was that custom field? Because I also had gender. Well, we matched group with team ID. That's the custom field that I want to use. I've got 4 on a team. And I'm calling this the best 2 net of 4 aspect of this particular event. So I think I'm good here. I'm going to say next. And my teams are done. Fantastic. So again, I got to bypass, by going from the spreadsheet, I bypassed having to enter players one at a time or using the quick method of putting in the first few letters, and making my teams became ridiculously easy because I did the challenging work in the spreadsheet. That's where I formatted everything and imported so that it became pretty much automated in terms of forming my teams. Now, I'm going to go back because I'm going to have a couple other divisions. I'm going to add a new division, and I'm going to call that optional gross skins. Next, it wants to know who's in. And typically, if it's gross skins, probably talking about some of your lower handicappers, so I want to arrange my field of 60 players in handicap index order. And then I'm going to be going, yep, he's in, and he's in, and he's in, and he's in, and so forth and so on. And I'm just going to get all the people that paid that extra amount in. And I don't know, let's see how many we wind up with. We got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We'll wind up with 12. We'll say that those are the people that are in. So there is that division. And then I'm going to add another division, which is optional net skins. And now it's going to want to know again, who is in this particular division. It's not everybody. I wouldn't need to do this if everybody was automatically entered. The default division of all the players would have been involved if it was an automatic pay-in. Here I still have them in order, but it's probably a lot of middle and high handicappers that are going to be playing in the optional net skins. Maybe some people enter both. But I went ahead and put 12 in there. So my divisions are done. My teams are done. I still haven't created the tournaments yet. That's going to be one of the last steps. And again, I'm coming to think of the tournament in its logic, in USGA TM's logic. Tournament really means the format. How do you perform the scoring for this event? So we already know we have 3 tournaments. We have best 2 net out of 4. We'll be able to spell that out to the program and say that's going to apply. We already know that we have gross individual skins, net individual skins. So the next step then is going to be to create pairings. That's going to be under rounds. Create new pairings. And now it's going, okay, you got these 15 teams of 4 people. Do all 4 play together? How are you going to do it? Well, in our zone and in our associate club, we split it up for time's sake, simplicity's sake. Let's just say, no, we're going to let the 4 play together, but we're going to have somebody following along, a marker who's going to make sure that everything is on the up and up. So we're going to do automatic scheduling. We want to make sure that it's 1 team per pairing group. Again, if this were 4-person scrambles, maybe you have 8-somes, and maybe you have 2 scramble teams per group. And this is the best net of 4 competition. So I'm going to say next. And this is where I got sidetracked last week. I focused so much on this area here that I lost this down here. I'm going to continue. Takes a little while for this to occur, but it's following my instructions. And I'm going to find that there are my pairings. Now, it still doesn't know what time. It doesn't know whether it's a shotgun. I may not like these default tees that have been established and things of that nature, but it's put the groups in a particular order. Now, here we have all sorts of opportunities. Now, they don't necessarily apply for 4-man teams where you want them to play together, but I could swap players. And if that were the case, if this was just an individual event, I could have said, I could click on Alex's name here and click on Ryan's name here, and they would be exchanged. If I do that, though, based upon this particular competition where I said, no, we want to keep the teams together, later on it's going to tell me, hey, you got a problem. You broke up a team. I could do the same with swap pairs. If I clicked on one person's name, I'd be getting the first 2 players, and then I could swap them with someone else, swap with this group, and they would be interchanged. I could swap pairings. So when I click on one name, the entire foursome is highlighted. I could say they asked for an early starting time, so let me swap them with the second group, and boom, they've been switched. The other primary reasons I'm going to use this is to set my tee time or my shotgun, and to set or confirm the course and tees. So first, let's set the starting times. I want to select all. Again, if this was a very large tournament, you might have a morning wave and an afternoon wave. So I would only select those clubs, those groups, those pairings that were going to be part of the morning group, and say these are the ones going off at 8 o'clock. They're going off 1 and 10. And then I have another set, I have another wave that goes off at 1 o'clock on 1 and 10. We do that for our 4-ball championship that has a very large field. They play Saturday, Sunday, off 1 and off 10 at Spyglass. They're opposite tee the next day, and then there's a cut, and they come back for the 3rd round. But in this case, we're just going to say, okay, the first starting time is 8:30. One of my global default settings was what starting times do you use? And I said, generally speaking, at our golf course, we go a 10-minute starting time. So it already inserted that. If I'm an associate club who travels and plays a lot of different golf courses, you're probably not going to be able to utilize a true default setting because your starting times are going to vary from course to course depending on how many minute intervals they utilize. It does have the ability to do alternate 7 and 8 minutes, so I could put in 7. Well, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to put in 7, 8. I've selected all. That's a go. So it's going to process them. I went 7 minutes and 8 minutes, 7 then 8. They're all my groups with their starting times. In some cases, you know, this is the point where I'd be setting the golf course and the tees. Again, the more I think of this, the more I like this step coming late in the process, not early. What golf course I was playing has had no bearing on anything up until this point. I haven't asked it to compute handicaps or anything yet for the best 2 net out of 4. So it doesn't matter if the course I'm playing has 100 slope or 150 slope. None of that matters until I actually add my tournaments and tell the program how the scoring is going to occur. So it's making more and more sense to me as I move post TPP that indicating the course and the tees coming late may make a lot of sense. So in this case, I'm going to select all players. Excuse me, I'm going to set all players. I'm going to say that the men are going to be playing the Poppy 3s tees for the men, not the default, the Poppy 2s. I'm going to say go, and we're going to see that for all the men, it swapped them over. And for the women, just if I want to confirm, I'm going to say select all the players. I'm just talking about the women. I want to make sure that they are set up on the 1 Poppy tees, say go, and now that's been taken care of. So from the spreadsheet, I added my players. I used the work that had been done in the spreadsheet to quickly, easily form my teams. I was able to now make my pairings, specify that we are going off number 1, starting at 8:30. Here's our starting time interval. The course, the tees are all set up. So I'm going to save these pairings. And then I'm going to be moving on to actually adding my tournaments. Again, sounds a little funny that it's coming late, but that's kind of what you were doing in TPP anyway. It wasn't until you actually started having scorecards returned where the program prompted you and said, okay, as you're about to enter these scores, what's the format? How am I going to do the scoring? How am I going to figure out who won? And that's where you would have said, I want to enter hole by hole, and it's best 2 net out of 4 and gone on from there. Same logic here. So I'm going to add some tournaments. First one is which division? The all golfers division, which I utilize to form my teams. The optional gross skins, the optional net skins. Well, the primary competition is the team, the best 2 net out of 4. So that's the one I want to use. I definitely want to use the teams. All team scores will count. Yes, all 4 players have an opportunity to count. The payouts are going to go to the teams. It's not individual payouts. It is stroke play. And this is going to be a team, meaning foursome, versus the field. We have 60 players, 15 teams. We decided not to set it up in divisions. It's not going to be the best ball in each hole. It's going to be the best 2 balls on each hole. It is over 18 holes. My tiebreaker method is going to be the USGA method of first looking at the last 9 holes and figuring out a net score. If that's still a tie, the last 6, the last 3, the last 1. This is a net competition, not gross, and under best 2 net out of 4, the USGA recommendation is you award 90% of the handicaps. Let's go ahead and set up the purse. It's not going to be winner take all. We're going to go first, second, third, fourth, fifth place. So let's say First place team divides $500, 400, 300, 200, 100. That means 1/3 of the field is being paid. That's fine. We also have a season-long competition, either in terms of prize money or points. So I want to award similarly some points in this case. And I'm going to say that each member of the winning team gets 10, and second gets 8, and 6, and 4, and 2, and go 5 places as well. Now, down here we have some advanced options. I'm not necessarily going to use them, but under handicaps yesterday when I was doing a better ball, that's where I was able to indicate that if the spread and the handicaps of the two partners exceeds 8 strokes, the USGA recommends a further reduction in both partners' handicaps. So that's where I was able to put that in play. So I don't need any of this in this particular case, though. I'm going to click on Save. That's one of my tournaments, but I have 3. The second one is the optional gross skins. So I'm going to say this is the division that I want. There were 12 players in it. I don't want to use teams. It is stroke play. It is going to be player versus the field. Excuse me, it's not stroke play. It's basic skins. It is player versus field. It's their own ball on each hole. Are we going to carry over? If no one claims a skin on the first and second hole, is it going to carry over? Nope. To win a skin, must the score be par or better, birdie or better? Nope, anything goes. Do you need some validation on the next hole? So yeah, you have the low score here, but it's not yours yet. You need to score at least a par or better on the next hole in order to claim that. No. Now, I've never heard of this, but again, the backbone of Golf Genius is 20-something club professionals whose job it was to run tournaments at golf clubs all across the country. So obviously, some of these features are features that their membership used. I've certainly found in my career, as I worked on the East Coast for a couple of years, in the Pacific Northwest, and now here, that some regions are different. I remember 15, 20 years ago hearing about something called a round robin that was very popular on the East Coast, where you put players in, you have 2 players form a team, normally a member and a guest. You form teams, you put them in flights. Each flight has 6 teams, and you wind up playing a 9-hole match with each of those teams, and then you see who the winner of that particular pot is. So there are 5 9-hole matches. Well, 20 years ago, I had never heard of it coming from the West Coast. It was very popular on the East Coast, and now it's migrated over to the West, and it's a common format that's a lot of fun that a lot of clubs utilize for their member guest. So, but I'm going to say no validation. This one is the gross event, so no handicaps are going to be used. So we don't care about any handicap allowance. And yes, it is going to be pro rata. It was at $10 that was put in, so the total pool is 120 points. We don't have a $120. We don't have a points competition assigned to this in this particular case. So I'm going to go ahead and save. So that's 2 of my 3 competitions. So again, I have in the vocabulary of Golf Genius, I have an event. That event only has 1 round, but I have 3 tournaments that are spinning off that. So I need to add my 3rd, and that's going to be the optional net skins. I'm going to uncheck that it's not everyone's involved, just the optional net. I didn't make that clear in the last step. I saw my error when I automatically included all golfers, and then I clicked on optional gross. It did not eliminate that one, so I had to. Don't use teams is correct. It's another basic skins game. Everything else pretty much works. It is going to be net, and we are going to use 100%. And I believe that we had 12 players in that one as well. It was a $10 buy-in, so I got $120 in this one as well. So now I have formed my 3 competitions that are playing out of this 1 round. It was pretty painless, especially since I used that spreadsheet. Setting up the optional skins was pretty straightforward. Here's a nice summary that I have purses, only points in 1, everything looking good. The next step is to perform a pre-play audit which is a feature that I very much like. It's just going to do some internal diagnostics to see if everything looks like it's in place. As I mentioned yesterday, you got a lot of pressure on you running a particular tournament. It's nice to do some of this in advance instead of the day of saying, oh my gosh, my scoreboard isn't working, something's gone wrong, where did the wires get crossed, what did I do wrong? Do this audit in advance. So luckily we passed. If I had swapped some players under pairings and moved someone from the third group into the first, I bet you something would have come up at this point going, hey, we got a little problem. You told me at one point it was going to be teams. The pairings are by teams. That's how you want the scoring. And yet you don't have, you have a situation where you have someone who's not on the team who's playing with the other three people, and that's occurring in two places. So it probably tell me you need to go back and fix something. It's nice to know that days in advance rather than minutes before the scorecards are being turned in. I'm going to want to do my handicap analysis. Showed you this yesterday where in my case I had a partner that was whose handicap was much higher than I was. We were playing a better ball. So first it took my index, adjusted it to the higher slope rating of the Poppy 4 tees that I was playing. I was the only one playing those tees. Everyone else was playing the lesser tees. So it adjusted my handicap index to the slope rating of the tees I was playing, then awarded 90% because that's what was called for a better ball. Then recognized at that point that the gap between my course handicap and my partner was more than 8, so it penalized both of us another 10%. And then the last step was I recognized that I was playing a set of tees that carried a rating 4.4 strokes higher than everybody else, so it awarded me 4 more. So I can get confirmation that everything was being done properly. So if I click on a name, there's the index adjusted to the slope rating of 135 for the 3 Poppy tees. That works out to a 21. As we apply the 90% allowance, which is recommended for a best 2 net out of 4, the 21 works out to 18.9, which rounds to a 19. 19 dots are going to appear on his scorecard. So again, this is your confirmation that it's working properly. If somebody had any question, especially about the difference in ratings between the multiple tees, you can click on this and get confirmation or prove to the person that yes, everything was done properly. The next thing I want to do before the round is over, and at this point, now that my pairings look good and I passed the audit, the diagnostics, I'm still days out from the tournament, but one of the things I might want to do is, hey, let's go ahead and show those pairings on the event portal now. So I could go ahead and I could send in an email to the field and tell them that the pairings are available on the portal and go ahead and do that. So by clicking this toggle, now those pairings would be available to anybody who logged into the portal. But now I want to check to make sure that the scoring features are working right, that it is computing net skins and gross skins, and it is computing best 2 net out of 4. One thing I noticed when I did this handicap allowance, notice how it only showed 2 of my 3 tournaments because one of the tournaments is played at gross, so there is no handicap. Handicaps are not applied to that particular competition, so there was nothing to check that it computed the handicaps properly. But I'm going to go in and I'm going to enter scores. And again, I think this is another great feature. We're just going to enter some dummy scores in just to exercise the leaderboards to make sure that it's doing everything properly. So I'm going to click on random scores. We're going to fill all the empty slots with a random value. Are you sure you want to do this? Yep. I've done it, so let's test that leaderboard. Well, I actually have 3 leaderboards, don't I? So let's just see if it looks okay. Again, this is for peace of mind. We are actually going to zero out all those scores, remove all those random scores before scorecards start getting turned in. But this is just for peace of mind. So let's go look at the low 2 net of best 2 ball, low net of best 2 net of 4 for everybody. And based upon these random scores, here's how it all worked out. There's my prize money per team. There's my points per team. Doesn't look like I had any ties here, so it didn't have to break that in terms of splitting up some of the pot there. But yeah, it looks like it's doing that correctly. Let me go check the basic skins, the gross skins, and see how that works out. Well, these are the people who paid in on an optional basis. There was 4 of them. The total pot was $120, so each skin is worth $30. Let's check the net skin. I didn't make out too well there. Let's see, the net skin, we had 5, so it worked out to $24 a piece. So yes, these scoring mechanisms appear to be working properly. I now have the peace of mind a few days out that it's working. I could go look at some of these others. The team point summary here, again, just confirmation, everybody who's getting 10 points. The purse summary, the top 5 teams. The player purse, this is where I've got the gross and net skin. So if someone got both a gross and a net, it would tally those two and say that's how you're going to divide that money. So now that I've performed an audit to make sure that everything looks like it's in order, that the handicaps have been calculated correctly, that the leaderboards are going to work, the next step might be printing out some reports to distribute, printing out scorecards. That's going to be done under rounds. Let's go to scorecards first. And let me go back 1 second. I just saw something else I'd like to show you. So I'm going to cancel this. I forgot to mention this, but we have this round checklist, and so it didn't give me much credit for having anything done until I actually created the pairings and when it said, okay, mission accomplished in terms of pairings, and then that the T's were set. So it would have given me 2 check marks before I started going in and creating my tournaments, and when I had the tournaments done, it would have given me credit there. And then I did enter some scorecards, so this is a little misleading. It was just random scores that I entered in order to test the leaderboard, but it gave me credit there. And I have exercised or tested the leaderboard, so it's, you know, it's giving you some reassurance that things are proceeding well. So let's go again to print scorecards. And it needs to know which, you get 3 competitions going on. Do you want, you know, which set of scorecards do you want? Well, the optional skins on both the gross and net basis, no, I don't want scorecards for that. Really what I'm concerned is the best 2 net of 4, where I'm going to have the dots appearing based on, because that's the primary competition. The others are just optional. So that's the one I want to create cards for. It's carried over all of my starting times, all of my groups. It's automatically selected everybody. Eventually, I'm going to want to print a scorecard for every one of those teams, so it's already defaulted to select all. This looks a little bit intimidating that, boy, just to do a scorecard, I have all these different aspects that I have to look at to confirm before I print. It's not that big a deal. Again, under pairing groups, I'm going to say yes, I want for all. Format is not talking about the format of the competition. It's just the format of the scorecards. And I'm going to say that I want 2 scorecards per page. You can still order that same stock from the NCGA that you've done before. It's $35 for a box. That includes 500 sheets, and each sheet has the ability to have 2 scorecards, so 1,000 scorecards. I could, you know, show every player, do all that. Down below is kind of showing the makeup of the scorecard. In this case, I have it's showing that, you know, if I had a man, it's going to display the 3 poppy tees. If there was a woman on this card, it's going to display hers with their stroke holes, which are different than the men. It's showing the dots. In Alex's case, he's a 3. 90% of 3 is 2.7, which rounds to 3. So his the number of strokes he's playing with was not impacted by the best 2 net of 4 allowance recommendation. An 8 coming down to a 7, that was the 10% kicking in. A 21 had to forfeit 2 strokes. So there's 1 hole that he's getting 2 pops on and all the rest 1. So everything looks good there. But the main point at this point was, do you want 1 scorecard per page or 2? The handicap stroking, how do I want the strokes displayed? Well, this is how I want it displayed. I want to, yes, I want dots, I want the course handicap before the adjustment, so applying the index to the slope table gave me a 15 for Rick, and I want the course handicap that the dots are based upon as well. So that is the manner that I want it. Additional information, this could be if I had a shotgun start and if I had a colored printer, how do I want to highlight the starting hole to catch their attention? You can see here that it's got some sort of Golf Genius ID numbers. That is unimportant to me for the scorecard, just a distraction. So I want to go ahead and remove that. Do I want a date and signature line? Sure, that's fine. That took care of that. Logo would be, how do I want to dress it up? For our default scorecards this year, Rules and Comp is going to have our logo here. Again, if this were an outside event, I could find another logo. I could put that corporation or that charity's logo in here, and again, dazzle those people and confirm that they're going to come back and have their event here next year as well. So pretty straightforward. I can adjust the size of that logo, things of that nature. Pretty straightforward. Fonts and colors. If it's a senior event, maybe I want a little bit larger print. I can bold, italicize things. You know, pretty straightforward. I did mean to mention at one point I could have added a row. I could have said that I want to include that this is the team net score for them to pull down from each hole. Again, fonts and colors, pretty straightforward. Preview is going to let me view 5 of them in advance before I actually print, because I don't want to waste any scorecards. They cost money. So let me just do a little preview, make sure it looks right. So in this case, I had 4 men playing, so it's only showing their tee and their stroke holes there. My next group looks like it had all men. Same with that one. There's that extra box that I added. Same with that one. I guess none of the ones I selected had a woman on it. If so, it would have shown their yardages down here, but we'll probably go ahead and see this. So I'm going to save the changes I made and print. Going to take a while to tally this. So whenever it's spinning, it always gives you a little tip of the day. Maybe you'll run into something that you go, hey, that will come in handy. So it's educational. Okay, so let's see what they look like. And let me just go through a couple and find one that has a woman on the team. There was one. So Cheryl is on this particular team, so it's giving her the courtesy of displaying all of her yardages and her handicap stroke holes, which happen to be different than the men. So you might find in some case that Cheryl and the next person have identical indexes. One's a man, one's a woman, and you see that the dots are not uniform, that some of them are on different holes. That's because of the separate men's and women's rankings. So at this point, I could go ahead and print, and I'd be done with that. Okay. I'm going to have 15 of them. Let's see what else I got here. Anything else? No. So I'm done. Just have to get this up to the top. It was blocked by some of the go-to webinar information. I'm going to close this, get back here, say back. There may be some other reports that I want to utilize, that I want to post on the portal, on the website, for people to be able to do it, especially if I had a very large field. It's not easy going through each group and finding your name. So there's some very straightforward reports that I can run. And for that, I'm going to go to download, print, and go to the print center. Here's one that's kind of neat, especially if I had a large field, because they said this can handle on one sheet of paper, basically both an alpha look and a team look. So let's go ahead, print this, show you what I mean. Okay, check it out. So here is the alpha list. I find my name, I'm at 907, so I go to 907 and now I know who I'm playing with. And again, this is organized in a way where you could have a field of 100 or more, and it's all going to fit handily on one sheet of paper, which would come in handy. Again, I could dictate in the portal that I want this to be accessible to the contestants who go and view the portal, find their pairings. What other reports might I be interested in? Well, I could say I want to do some cart signs. The main point here would be I want 2 per page. Portrait, I want them for everybody. Let's see what those look like. Again, a great rainy day project. Mess around with the format, with your logo, with a watermark, things of that nature, and just and the fonts and the bolding and the size, and just get it where it looks dazzling to you. Save that, and then you'll be able to draw upon that in the future. Anytime you need cart signs for your particular event, you'd be getting the one that you invested some time in just to get it looking right. So nothing fancy with these. For ours, we have the logo a couple of times, so everything looks fine there. What other reports might be interested in? Well, if I have a big plotter printer, especially a color one, I can go in and do some very, very fancy leaderboards that you can dress up that are just stunning looking. I can do whole location sheets. As you remember yesterday, when you set up your scorecard, when you set up the golf course, you have some global settings for the course, and then you have some individual settings for the tees, like the individual yardages, things like that, the different stroke holes for women versus men. But the global ones included the green depth. I could have gone into the program and said, okay, I do want whole location sheets. We already know what the depth is. On hole number 1, it's going to be 11 paces from the front, and it's going to be 7 paces from the left. And so you would be able to generate that, and it would perform a calculation saying how many yards short or beyond the center of the green it was. So if I'm right at the 150 and it tells me that it's the flag there is 8 yards short of the center of the green, I do the math and I say, okay, I'm 142 to the flag. So I could do that there. Again, all sorts of leaderboards, things like that. Now, just to show you under the design and print scoreboards, because this doesn't look like there's a whole lot to choose from there. There are, oops, I didn't mean, went to the wrong place. I want the print center, report composer. There are dozens and dozens of reports and layouts available to you that you can draw from. It's a little bit hidden to you in advance. Again, I had to, and I'll show you before we exit one more time where I went, but you can see the dozens upon dozens of different types depending on, you know, if it's pace of play or you got X number of people that are on a team, and you know, just all these different formats. So hopefully you can find what you're looking for. If it's not quite right, you can say that you want to edit it. You know, you want to take what's there, but then edit it, get it to your liking, and then you know, rename it to something that will really stand out, and you'll be able to recognize when you go into it. So a lot of these are generated by Golf Genius. Unfortunately, by going from a 2004 or 5 program to 2018 one, we couldn't pull in all of your, or we can't pull in all your custom scorecards, all your custom reports. They would have to be recreated. Our guys are going through that right now. So here are the ones that Golf Genius automatically provided. And now all of these are some of the ones that our rules and competition department are recreating, the types that we had in TPP before, because we need those in order to conduct our championships, and you can do the same. So let me show you one more time. That's when we said that we wanted to go to the print center, and then to see all those reports that are available, we would click on Report Composer. So again, we've now we're getting closer to the day of the event. I'm showing the pairings on the event portal in advance. Now the players are out, they're playing, they're turning in their scores. The next step is going to be to enter scores. And first of all, I'm going to get a prompt saying, hey, you got all those random scores in there. Certainly those aren't real. Do you want to remove those? And I could say, yes, clear them. Now the posting, I'm not going to clear them just so you don't have to wait for me to enter 60 individual scores. But it's very straightforward in terms of entering a score, not much different than TPP. You know, in this case, it just would have been 337, 537, and then you just enter all the player scores. It goes very, very quickly. But again, I'm going to save you having to redo them all. I am going to shuffle the deck just from the standpoint that, again, to show you that it is going to prompt you that you have random scores in there. You need to clean it. But I'm going to say no, and I'm just going to enter some new random scores and see if I fare a little bit better. I was on a team that cashed but didn't get any skins. Now I'm going to go look at the leaderboard, which we're going to pretend is the real leaderboard. Again, we have 3 different competitions going on, so I'm going to have multiple leaderboards that I look at. And the main competition, best 2 net of 4. I'm still in 4th place, so that was good. We didn't have any ties here. Again, if I want to check out optional skins, still did not make out optional net skins. Doesn't look like it actually replaced the scores, but again, these were just bogus scores. They were just something to confirm that the leaderboard is working, a nice safeguard for you. So the scores have been entered. We would then be able to come back here. We would do a little bit of double checking. You know, after all the scores are entered, you just want to make sure that it appears to you that the math is correct, that the computations are correct. Once they are, you would say show the results in the event portal. So after the fact, you could direct the contestants to your special website that was just created for this particular event, and they would be able to view all of those results themselves. So we might as well go take a quick look at that. The portal's under apps. This advances us here. There's still our flash message. I could certainly change the content of this after the fact, but I could go to tournament results and go ahead and view those. Again, it has me in as a administrator. Let me go ahead and see what it looks like from the standpoint of the players. Well, it's popped up anyway, but I could go look at the low net, and there they all are where my my contestants can view it. And I could look at the skins. I could generate, again, you control which of the reports you want over here. So if someone was really convinced that, gee, I should have had the skin for that, you have some reports which are going to show hole by hole for your entire field, and you go, ah, that's the person who tied me. That's what cost me right there. And again, we could create some analytics for the golf course showing scoring averages on each hole, breakdown of everybody's rounds in terms of net pars, net birdies, etc. Whatever you want to include in there. And that's really start to finish a tournament. So again, some of the things that you need to be thinking of is, what is the size of your roster? What is the typical size of your events? What's going to be the best way to add players? Is it going to be via the master roster and just saying I want to add directly from it and placing check marks in there and being able to easily move from front and back of the alphabet because you have a small club, so that you can keep the order of how you enter them intact for different team competitions? Are you a big club, and so that quick lookup feature where you put in 3 or more letters of a name that narrows down your search where you can find that person and then click add, that's going to be the way that you go? Or did you want to import a spreadsheet, do your formative work on the spreadsheet in terms of who's playing, and then putting in some coding based upon how you want to form the teams or how you want to form the pairings groups, things like that. So do your formative work outside the program itself within this spreadsheet, and then import that spreadsheet and fast track the setup of the tournament. Golf Genius in general, they feel that that's the way that tournaments are going, but this product is, and they make no bones about it, this product was primarily designed for golf professionals running tournaments at their club. But they see that that's the direction things are going. They also see that we're going to be moving to a point where we don't have printed reports, where we don't have printed scorecards, that you'd see all of your pairings and everything like that on your iPhone, and that there'd be an opportunity via an app or something to be able to post scores on a hole-by-hole basis, so that scorecards weren't required as well. So let's see, what else is there to talk about? We're going to be creating a web page presence regarding these webinars. We're going to post what was considered the best of the 3 part 1 segments. I don't know if there was one. The best of the part 2 webinars, and this one's clearly going to be it. The first one, I had one hiccup, and the second one, I made a serious error. So believe it or not, this was the best of the second. We're going to have those available, that perhaps you have other people within your club that were unable to make it here. They can watch the webinar. It's going to be no different. We're going to post, some people asked for the slides for the first presentation. Sure, we can do that, but to be honest with you, if you go to the Golf Genius knowledge base, you're going to find far superior information, far superior training aids, narrated explanations of different features, videos, etc., animated little featurettes showing, you know, here's where you find this in the menu, and you follow them clicking and going from there, and showing the selections that they're making in an animated format. But we can go ahead and put that there. We will put the directions for how you go from GHP online into TPP as a measure to carry you over for the next few weeks until and again, we don't know what date these accounts are going to be activated. But even when they're activated, it may take you a week or two before you're ready to go live on one of your tournaments and use USGA TM exclusively. So we'll show you how you can download a current roster with current handicaps. We'll have those directions in to show you how you bring it over to TPP. Also, Golf Genius does live webinars. It's looking like 3 times a week, and those could be beginner ones like this. Again, I chose not to use them because they know the program inside and out. I don't, and so I can relate to the situation that you're in, and maybe how I am learning the program would help you in learning it, because again, this progression, the step-by-step order, is starting to make more sense to me. But if you want to see a very good webinar, you can do that. Now, it does require that there's an account set up, so we have basically a generic account set up with a generic code that you would be able to enter. Instead of a email address and password, you'd use a Golf Genius ID number, and that would allow you to get in and then allow you to register for one of those webinars. But that's the demonstration. Again, in future weeks, we're going to redo part 1 and part 2 in a couple of weeks for those who couldn't attend here. We certainly hope that all the accounts are active and going then, so it'll be a nice refresher course. Or some additional people, some of the women's associations want their women to have an opportunity to view that. In late February, the feature that I'm really looking forward to, the quick event setup feature, is going to come in, where instead of having to go through all those pages, it's going to be reduced to a page or 2. There'll be some like canned type of formats where, you know, we're going to form 2-man teams, and it's going to be a better ball. So you basically get to spell out the event early on, and instead of going through all those pages, it's 1 page to set everything up. As soon as that is out, and shortly after that, we'll be doing some seminars on that, because Golf Genius told us that more than 70% of the tournaments are 1-day events that could probably utilize that. They just are default settings. So if you said, yes, I want to use quick event to get me over the hump and do almost everything, but then I need to go in and tweak a couple of features, that's certainly going to be available to you. And then we'll just be looking at, and we could use your input on the different types of features that you'd like a more detailed description of. That might be creating teams, that might be multi-day events, that might be season-long points accumulations, leagues, things of that nature. You start telling us some of the type of webinars you'd like to see, and we'll create those and try to keep them quick and simple, not 2-hour ones at all, but just hone in on some of the features that are really important to you. I encourage you to utilize the knowledge base. I encourage you to click on help at any point in time, and it's going to bring up different subjects that pertain to the page you are on. For the first several weeks, all of us that are trying to support this on your behalf, I'm sure that's where we're going to be going until we have enough experience to just go understand it inside and out, that, gee, I'm having a problem with the dotting of the strokes, and we're probably going to go to help and bring up the topic of scorecards dots, and it's going to explain it to us or give us links to other articles that explain it. You can do that too. I'm expecting that 90% of our answers are going to come from the help that's available online, and ultimately 90% of your answers will. We can escalate the problem, certainly to Golf Genius thus far. They've been very responsive. Basically, I indicate at some point that no, I did not find what it was looking for, and so it gives me an opportunity to send it on to some support staff at Golf Genius, and then they send an email response, and they're pretty much 3 for 3 in getting back to me in a pretty timely manner. We're going to be taking on a lot of that and hoping to do the same for you. But again, early on, we're going to be relying on that help, and we would ask that you start searching some of that help too. Maybe you can find the answer yourself before you have to submit an email to us. So that's going to wrap up today's webinar. We thank you for your time. We're looking forward to introducing this program. This Sunday, we had a live seminar here at Poppy for representatives from some regular member clubs that had gone through Part 1 and Part 2 last week. And so we just queried them on the spot. What were their thoughts? And overwhelmingly, it was, okay, we're very high on this. This looks like it's really going to do what we need to do. I'm a little bit fearful about learning how it happens, but we're excited about this. And months from now, or certainly by the end of the year, a lot of this is going to become old hat. You're running your tournaments this way, and it's taking your tournaments to another level in terms of the opportunities and the features that you have versus the old program. So thanks for tuning in. I'll be checking questions that you dropped here. We'll be reviewing any questions that you submit to us via email. So thank you.